Welcome to the Teacher Induction Program for February 2021. We're going to go ahead and get started. Remember that at the end of our presentation, or if you have a few moments on the side, you can post a topic or a question on the Tip Talk. That's just down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen of the presentation. Scott's going to put this presentation in the chat feature so you guys can follow along if you like and hit those hyperlinks. And you can see there's a bit.ly down there that you can click on at any time.
Okay, we're going to move to our second thing on the agenda. So we have this little game here of 2 truths and 1 imposter. We have some kind of awards for you guys, if you will, or some goodies to get to you at the end for whoever gets the most. But I'm going to place you guys into breakout rooms. And during those breakout rooms, I want you can type in the chat as well as obviously orally speak to one another, but at least type it out so somebody can see it.
And I'm doing a sample right now in the chat. I'll have it right there. You good. Perfect. Keep going,
okay,
Ashley.
Okay. So what it is 2 truths and 1 imposter. So think of something about yourself, your history, anything you would like, and type it out and also say it, please. 2 things that are true, and then 1 basically lie. And if we can figure out, if Joseph's in that group and he figures out what the lie is of multiple people, he'll end up being the winner. Okay. So let me split you up and I'll copy this into the chat, or David is, like you said. And
you go ahead and put us in the, but there's an example. So I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
I have to stop sharing. I'm sorry. There we go.
I was born and raised in the Bay Area. My favorite city is Paris, France. Okay. 2 are true. What's the fake?
All right, here we go, guys. Go and accept your rooms, please.
All righty. Well, thank you. So I don't know if anybody got to guess the most. I'm sorry that was so short. Looks like you guys were having fun, and then the fun ended prematurely. But let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And if anybody did guess the most, or everybody in their group agrees who guessed the most, you guys just post those names in the chat feature and we will get them their Starbucks.
What do we do if it was only 2 and 1 person guessed each? Is that a tie? We only did 2.
Maybe it is a tie. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is today's agenda for today. We're going to do our little reflection, the credential check-in like you always do with Chris. Then we're going to do a little training. It's called Quad D, and you guys are going to be with me and Scott. The first year teachers are going to be with Ashley and David Amon. We're going to get a little break for 5 minutes, and then we're going to go to CTSP 5 with our presenters. So any questions about today's agenda, folks?
No, sir.
All righty. Well, we'll move on to the next slide.
All right. So kind of just a reflection here. Does anybody want to chime in? How was your last month of teaching? How is it going? Anything you want to enlighten us with or share, as well as any teaching goals you have accomplished this year? Open up the floor. Do you have anybody?
I will just say, and I will share it in my breakout, that the struggle is real. I subbed for a teacher for 1 period, and I'm sure the students said, do not have that man back. I did a great job taking roll, though.
What was the subject, David? How did you not excel? I don't believe this.
Veterinary assistant. Oh, how did I not excel? Google Meets, Google Classroom. Technology. Technology
has failed us.
Technology.
I think the last month is I've gone pretty well for me. I really enjoyed. I think one of the things that I like about teaching in an ROP setting is that I'm learning a lot of different things from different career paths, and that's always been kind of exciting to me. I did the CI, the computer mapping class at Colton High School, and just going over the curriculum, I was like, well, I never knew how in-depth this stuff could be. So just finding those different things out from different careers, like in welding, also what a spot weld is and stuff, it's going to make me a great guest at someone's cocktail party, a little further down the line.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide if nobody else has anything to share. All right. Okay. Let's see. There we go. So this is, of course, we have a next collaboration, no collaboration. There's a PD collaboration March 4th at the ROP that you guys, well, virtually, of course, at the ROP. Remember, there's also Tech Tuesdays every Tuesday. That's Wendy McClung and Alex Becerra. They get together and ask, and you can go there, and it's kind of like an open little classroom they open up, and you guys can ask them any questions you maybe have about technology, and they'll help you out. Also, don't forget to fill out your credential forms. And if we have enough time, this at the end of today's presentation, hit that tip talk and put in your concerns or any ideas that you have there. And of course, there is the Google Activity Tracker for you as well. You've got all of those things at your disposal. Just wanted to remind you about March 4th, and we'll be presenting it March 4th again. Oh my goodness. So, all right.
Out of the way. So what this is, we're going to go through this rigor and relevance framework, and it's called Quad D. And it's a framework guided to focusing on resources to, engage students more, gather more presentations and hands-on resources and learning, especially as distance learning, and to guide you guys on how to, move through these kind of quadrants as you move through as an educator and with your experience. And we'll start there. Chris and Scott are in another with team 2, year 2 teachers. Then myself and David are here with you guys today, and hence our theme here. So let's see. So I'm just going to kind of read what we have here. This framework is a tool developed by the International Center for Leadership and Education to examine curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So again, we look at, and as we have our meetings with our managers and whatnot, as you guys get more adapted to your teaching skills and years in, we try to meet these different quadrants of our teaching, from memorization to adaptation to having students actually create modules and just move through it and kind of giving the guidance today on how to do that. So again, if you have any questions at any time, like I tell my students, please just chime in and interrupt me. Please don't drop, doesn't matter. I have no problem answering anything I can try to for you. So the framework is based on 2 dimensions, one higher standard and also student achievement. So again, how do we move through those standards to get the students to have their own kind of self-learning ability, but hands-on as well. Teachers can use it to monitor their own progress as they add rigor and relevance to their instruction, and as they select appropriate instructional strategies for differentiating instruction and facilitating higher achievement goals. So there you have, like I said, there's 4 quadrants to it, and David and myself will kind of go through those with some videos to show you, how do you adapt and get to that module. Again, not now. We're looking for Quad D now. This is something maybe 2 years in the making or more, as a really structured teacher, as you kind of dig your feet in and get used to it. So Quad A, which we'll see in a little bit here, is acquisition. Students gather and store bits of knowledge and information. So is this just presenting something for students to memorize, to just understand the knowledge, reverberize it back to you, and details will come later. Quad B, or Quadrant B, is application. Students use acquired knowledge to solve problems. So you take those memory skills, you take those words, maybe in my classes that they've memorized, anatomy of medicine, that's what I teach. And then they acquire to solve problems, solve healthcare, maybe questions we could adapt to in the classroom. Quad C is assimilation. Students extend and refine their acquired knowledge. So can they assimilate in taking that knowledge that they've learned and building up this building block? In my case, maybe they're now just drawing out or creating, molding, even at home right now, a heart module. First, they looked at the words they're memorizing, the valves of the heart. Then they're telling me the blood flow and writing structures about it. Now they're actually building something, modeling it from what they've learned in the beginning. Now that's Quad C. That may take a while to get to. Not now. Maybe it is at the end of the year, as you've had these students for quite a while. And then Quad D is the last and the highest level you can get to, and that's adaptation. Students have the competence to think in complex ways. Maybe again, they're going and building that model, but putting extra emphasis on it. In my class, I kind of spoke a little bit about heart, and that would be cardiology. Now they're taking patients, and this would be a true story, and going into clinic and listening to heart valves and performing EKGs on them, starting from the basis of just listening and knowing what the word heart valve means, and blood and right, and pressure. And now they're actually applying those on real patients and deciphering those skills. So any questions?
So as you guys can see, there's the 4 quadrants, and they really play on each other. When you look at the left side, you see the 1 through 6. You have the knowledge and awareness. Then you move to comprehension. Then you move to application. Then once you apply it, you move to analysis. then synthesis, then you evaluate. How well did my students do throughout this process? On the bottom axis, you see number 1, knowledge in one discipline. Number 2, apply in discipline. Number 3, apply across disciplines. Number 4, apply to real world predictable situations. And number 5, apply to real world unpredictable situations. So in the next few slides, the next 4 slides, we're going to go through each quad. We're going to break it down for you. We're going to show you a quick video. We're going to discuss A, B, C, and D. A being our first kind of that knowledge awareness comprehension section. And as we're doing this, what I challenge you to do is just really in the back of your mind, think about the journey that you take your students through with various subjects. We all are knowledge experts within what we teach. And how do you get your students from understanding a concept to now applying the concept and being able to produce that concept and analytically understand how that coincides with A, B, C, and D. So really give that some thought. Give that with each of your subject matters as we jump into each of these. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so A. Let me just change my slide. Quadrant A, which is acquisition. Students gather and store bits of knowledge and information. Students are primarily expected to remember or understand this knowledge. These are the things that it's the foundation. They have to know it. Let's watch the video.
So first of all, the terminology. We introduced this via welding class, right? What are the terminology? What are different bolts and joints and things I have no idea about, by getting the students used to the names pertaining to the actual material itself. And then again, labeling here's not only the word, but the picture to it and how to put it together. Okay, we'll move through this a little bit because it goes through all of them. Right, the music. Okay, so basically, just again, go ahead.
And there's still importance of that quad A stuff because you have to have that general knowledge in order to build upon it. You can't just move straight to quad C, quad D.
Yeah, absolutely not. Oops, I'm sorry, I have to move my bars out of the way, which I know you guys know using Zoom. Click, there we go. All right, so can you please tell me, do you have access to click on this? Look at you, okay, perfect. And I would ask, we are sharing this Padlet through another presentation. So that's why it says year 2. If you could just put year 1, you don't have to put your name, it's anonymous. But the question is, very quickly, share an experience you have had providing your students involving quad A. So we probably have all hit quad A. What is something that you maybe have done in the classroom, and we'll kind of share as we go along. This is neat. So quadrant B, the application. So this video shows, it's gonna, again, I'll move through it a little bit quickly here for time, but it's gonna show, kind of an illusion. What are we teaching compared to what are the students absorbing? We see a picture here of a piece of paper with a triangle cut out on it, but the shadow is gonna show a circle. And so when they ask participants to look at something, to analyze something, especially in your classroom, we say, okay, you memorize this word, this term or application or data. How's it going to be applied now to this, lesson or what you're learning or this tool at hand, let's say. And again, it might not always be what we think, what we see that matches what we've maybe learned of the concept of that analogy. So taking acquired knowledge to solve problems, really diving in, investigating, not just seeing, oh, triangle means triangle. No, it could be something completely opposite, or putting the competent level to the work and analogy to that scenario. So it's the highest level of application to apply knowledge to new and unpredicted situations. So we'll watch.
We have that card with a little round hole in it. And what I want you to do is hold it up and try to cast a shadow on that wall there. Okay. And I want you, before you do it, to predict what we're going to see.
Shadow of the card.
Shadow of the card.
With a little hole in it.
We'll see that figure enlarged on the wall.
It's not very pronounced, but you can actually do see the little hole in it. And of course, me.
So cool. Woohoo! My next question for you is, we have this card. What's that like?
It's a bigger hole.
Can you tell me what size circle we're going to see? Like compared to the other one?
Bigger. Like twice the size maybe?
But still, the card with the larger round hole.
What do you see?
Bigger hole.
The card and the hole slightly bigger than the previous one.
And the same thing, just larger.
Okay, what I want you to do...
It's the same size though. It's approximately the same size as the last one.
Why don't we compare it? Here you go.
You're right, it is. One's just fainter than the other.
Oh, goodness. It actually looks about the same.
Same size hole.
I can't believe that. It must be the sun playing tricks with my mind.
What about, here's really going to test you, right?
Okay.
Tell me about what's on that card. Before you put it up.
It's a triangle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you expect that we'll see on the wall?
A triangle, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a circle.
What are we going to see?
A triangle. I'm
sure?
certain.
Okay, let's have a look.
Oh, wow. That's awkward for me. It's a circle.
It'll be a triangle.
Well, we're not going to see a triangle.
Why not?
Because everything else has been a circle, so it'll be a circle.
Okay. So what do you think we saw there? How can you apply that to your student learning or your classrooms? What do you think? Anybody?
And Ashley, do you want those in
that card with a little round hole?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to
Do you want those in the Padlet that's in
Yes.
chat?
Yes, please. I'm trying to get to it and my bar is blocking it. I'll wait for the chat. There we go. Thank you.
Alexis, the Padlet for Quad B seems to be a list, which is fine.
Okay, now I can see it. So share an experience you have provided your students with quadrant B. Oh, thank you, Alexis. Yeah, I don't. Story element, the short Pixar cartoon, very nice. Showing my students how to use the tools of the ArcGIS Pro as identified tools. Exactly. Good. And I think just bringing to the table too, maybe what, again, showing them something, or in my case, it'd be medicine, and what do they think, and what, what's going to happen here? What do you assume is going to happen? What are you assuming you're going to predict is you're going to see?
Students create primitive 3D models using basic shapes. So they start doing some modeling. They're doing it with basic shapes.
Very good.
And I'll move this out of the way. So in Quad C, students extend and refine their acquired knowledge and are able to use that knowledge to automatically and routinely analyze and solve problems and create solutions. And so the solution here is, hey, we've got a virtual wall. You need to create a trebuchet and hit that virtual wall of the pumpkin from a certain distance. Let's see how they did.
Woo! Ooh, that went pretty far.
Yeah, well, who knew the physics class could be so much fun? Students at Upland High School have been learning how to build a medieval catapult called the trebuchet.
Yeah, it may look simple, but actually designing, building, and executing a catapult is a very complex process. But once the tough engineering stuff is out of the way, well, it's really all about launching those pumpkins.
It took about like 3 hours to make the actual trebuchet, but it took blood, sweat, and tears. It was a good process, and the result was amazing. Once I finished, I got this good feeling of just, it's done, and I'm gonna go launch some pumpkins.
By the way, beginning students start with a small trebuchet and graduate to a larger one during their junior year. They're graded on engineering, functionality, and teamwork. That is so much fun.
All right. So that is Quad C. Let's go ahead and move over to Quad D. If everybody's contributed, and I'll go back over here and we'll go to that next slide. Or not. There we are. Okay.
All
So
right.
go ahead, Scott.
Oh, so Quad D is bringing it all full circle. So Quad D, at that point, your students have the complexity to apply these skills, understand these skills. They have the knowledge to be able to teach these skills at this point. And there's a great video that we have here for a demonstration of that.
Remember, at this point, they are applying it to a unique problem, a problem that is outside of the scope of something that is well known. So let's take a look.
Nearly 8,000 people fall through the ice nationwide each year, in extreme cases ending in injury or death. In Wisconsin alone, over 1 million fishing licenses were sold in 2019, a third of those for ice fishing. During a busy weekend on Lake Winnebago, near our hometown of Omro, there can be over 7,000 vehicles on the ice. On this lake alone, an average of 15 vehicles go through the ice a year, costing $5,000 or more to remove each one. After researching, we found little existing technology to keep winter enthusiasts safe on the ice. We thought the most effective solution would be to create a robotic sensor that could test ice thickness and upload it to a user-friendly app without a person or vehicle needed to venture out on the ice. Our original brainstorm sketches were rated using an engineering analysis in order to determine which design fit our criteria the best, with the highest scoring design chosen for our initial prototype. The class then divided into specialized groups, each given a specific task to contribute to the prototype. We used a cardboard mock-up in order to get a better understanding of the most effective sizes and shapes for our actual robot. Once we knew the estimated dimensions, we began designing the parts in a CAD program. Because one of our primary criteria was constructing a lightweight robot, we decided that 3D printing the tracks and gears would allow us to customize our parts and easily preserve funds and weight. After doing extensive research on different types of sensors and consulting with Dr. David Reed as well as local Arduino experts, we decided to use ultrasonic transducer technology. By using sound waves to determine ice thickness, we were able to accurately and reliably measure ice thickness by calibrating the sensor for the speed of sound in ice. To understand the sonar technology better, we decided to use Snell's law, which is used to measure the angle of incidence and reflection of a wave when reflecting from a change in two different mediums like ice and water. Another aspect that was vital to the robot's function and design was the body frame. Utilizing our graphic design skill set, we were able to create our original app, StatIce. We followed the 3-click rule, allowing users to navigate, examine current and past data, along with weather patterns. Future iterations include advancing the sonar technology to take measurements without stopping, as well as automating our robot. We also plan to use data that Iggy collects to show trends in climate and ice cover over time. This will improve our understanding of the impact of climate change on our community as well as the planet.
There we go. That is a Quad D project where it's applied to a difficult problem, a real world problem. They consult, they split into teams, they work on different aspects of the problem. They consult with outside, one of them, they consulted with a doctor, they consulted with Arduino experts, and they're actually making something to apply to a real world thing. That is an example of Quad D. And this time I can reach the Padlet. How do you guys do Quad D?
The link is posted for you guys.
So flipped classroom. We'll play a little bit of this, David, and then maybe you can describe it just a bit.
You know,
here.
I think let it play.
Okay.
The flipped classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom on its head. Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions of students. Every night, millions of students sit over the exact same homework, trying to figure out how to solve it. The flipped classroom is turning this upside down. Traditionally, students listen to lectures and take tests in class, and read textbooks and work on problem sets at home. In flipped teaching, students first study the topic by themselves, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class. Modern schools who flipped their classroom report many benefits. 1. It allows all students to learn at their own pace, as videos can be watched again. 2. It's more efficient, as students enter the classroom prepared to contribute. 3. It enriches the classroom, as more time can be spent on group work and projects. 4. Doing homework in class allows students to help each other, which benefits both the advanced and less advanced learners. Flipping also brings changes for teachers. Traditionally, teachers engage most with the confident students who ask questions. Flipping allows teachers to target the students who really need help, instead of just those who are confident. Also, instead of instructing from the front, teachers guide on the side. This allows them to work more closely with individuals or small groups. Teachers that are not great presenters can use third-party videos to explain the concept and focus on methods of teaching that suit their style, such as project work or experiments. Once video lectures are made available online, teachers don't need to give the same lecture over and over again. Again, they gain more time to focus on the needs of their class. Many scholars also argue that the flipped classroom model promotes equal learning opportunities, as all kids get the same attention when doing their homework. Currently, kids with caring parents, older siblings at home, or expensive private tutors have a clear advantage over those who don't. Let us know what you think.
Okay. Does anybody want to share one example quickly of them placing this on a virtual learning atmosphere and you've had this occur in a classroom you want to share?
Example of what?
Of doing this, a flipped classroom setting.
In distance learning?
Yeah, have you been able to do that?
Much more challenging right now.
Yeah. Probably I would say maybe, I don't know if this is right or not, but example, offering of SST all the time. Yeah, no?
What was, I didn't hear that, I'm so sorry.
The offering of student support time so that you
That
have
is true.
more one-on-one time with some students that need it.
Exactly. And even these breakout rooms, sometimes having, again, the students take the lead on a project, and who is your, maybe one student in the breakout room, you're the lead student today that's going to help, take over and give direction to this group of individuals and come up with a plan or situation. Yeah, it is much more challenging online. Absolutely.
The flipped classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom.
Apparently, I do not know how to operate this. All right, so project-based learning, also called PBL. Let's take a look.
Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education, project-based learning. Capture your students' attention with real-world problem. Project-based learning is often abbreviated to the acronym PBL, which will be used throughout the video. So, why should educators use PBL in their classroom? Projects are often assessed through presentations. Having students present more often helps students develop better communication skills. Many times, project assignments allow students to work with their hands and complete tasks. It's important for them to have developed some of these 21st century life skills. Projects are assigned as group activities. Being able to work with others is a necessary component of countless fields of work. PBL really comes in handy for those situations where students are just plain old bored of lectures. The best part of PBL is that it increases student engagement. Students will actually enjoy working on these projects and be much more pleasant while working. Who is PBL meant for? Now, it can be used for any student. However, it is most effective on certain types of students. At-risk students benefit the most from project-based learning. These students obviously struggle with typical classroom learning. PBL can be used for many different classes, but PBL is most prevalent in social studies, science classes, and art classes as well. One common misconception is that project-based learning is only meant for upper grade level courses. However, PBL may be incorporated from grades kindergarten through 12th grade. How to implement PBL in our classroom. Every class project should begin with a driving question that is specifically aligned to a learning goal. The level of complexity of the driving question should be appropriate for the type of students in the classroom. The next step for implementation is the inquiry process. Students should apply learned knowledge, ask and answer critical thinking questions, and locate resources. In the next step, students find a solution to the driving question. Here is where students solve the problems, oftentimes with creations, models, and presentations. And the last step is to allow students to make their projects available to the public, to give students a voice. Now that we have done all this talking about PBL, let's take a look at some classroom examples. Here are a few of my personal creations that I am very proud of. This is a project where I asked students to build a model of the Titanic and examine the ways the ship could have been built much better. It is a 6th grade social studies project and includes reasoning, writing, and research. The following project asked students to find the proper measurements and create a scale frame of a 2-bedroom hip model house. It was for a 12th grade math analysis course. And the last project asked students to convert from feet to inches and use the measurements to paint and create a miniature basketball court. It was actually used for an at-risk Algebra 1 course. Right now, I would just like to say thank you for your time and please subscribe to the channel.
All right. So there's an example. And of course, that's what we do, right? As CTE teachers, this is where we shine more than any other component. We have more access to these types of ideas, but we just wanted to make sure that you understood that about the driving question and the process of project-based learning in there. And you guys will get a copy of all this. So it'll be available to you guys so you can review this at your leisure and take a look at it again if you like. Just like we're just going to flip the classroom on you or something. So, all right, folks, I think it's time for us to get back to our, all right, again, let's try this. All right, so, I think this is
the end of our rainbow.
End of our rainbow. We're here at the Pot of Gold, and I'm going to go ahead and you guys, this is your link right here. It's you guys are the yellow link. Go ahead and hit that.
In your chat box, I posted the link for you.
See if you can apply these working together. Of course, you guys can work together as a team. You can see if you can apply these examples to the proper quadrant. But let's look at what these answers actually are. You guys did pretty well, but so it goes something like this. Actually, this one goes here. That one goes there. Yep. You got those two right. 6 and 4 are correct, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry.
B should be 1 and 7.
That is 1 and 7. You're right. Oops. Sorry. So 7 goes there. 4 goes to D.
And then 4 is
5 goes to D, and 2 goes to there. So
Correct.
there
So
we
that
are.
means they got more than 2 wrong. We need to start the presentation over.
Mention over again and just start from scratch. Man, oh man, you guys. No,
This top button. Here we go.
yeah, but here they are. So again, quad A is list vocabulary definitions orally. You're just doing that rote foundation work. Recall and calculate directions given for a math equation. Again, that rote foundation work. How do you process this equation? How do you put that equation together? We're quad B, we're now applying it, collect and display data to solve a problem, apply the knowledge to an unpredicted situation to solve, right? So now they're taking that rote work and they're applying it. Quad C, research and summarize a solution to a given problem, right? This involves an existing solution or known solutions, right? Analyze ideas to build a simulation device, a device that's going to simulate something that's already known. Where in quad D, we have discover and design a new recipe, right? Something that's never been made before, right? The problem is a unique problem, and discover ideas with skills they have acquired. Again, something unique, or creating a new unique idea, or figuring something unique out.
But we have CSTP 5. So we have Jeff and Ryan and Mike and Larry that are going to help us present with this information here.
Alrighty, guys, good to see you all. My part today, myself and with Larry and myself, we're going to be covering CSTP 5, and I'm going to share my screen with you. And please give me a thumbs up if you see my screen.
We see it, Mike.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Let me go ahead and present. All right, perfect. All right, what is CSTP 5? Actually, let me just do it that way better. I don't want to see a subtitle. Here we go. Okay. What is CSTP 5? CSTP 5, it's basically, in short, it's basically assessing students for learning. And to assess students for learning, there's different ways for us to assess our students based on getting some data, because data tells you a story, and when you know a story, you can actually use that information, and when you use that information, you can implement, make modification, and change. So what this saying here, teachers apply knowledge of the purposes, characteristics, and use of different types of assessment. They collect and analyze assessment data from a variety of sources and use those data to inform instruction. Basically, that's what you said earlier. What they do, they review data both individually and with colleagues to monitor student learning. Us as teachers, we use the assessment data to establish learning goals and to plan, differentiate, and modify instruction. That's very, very important, this section here, because whatever we give our students, whatever the outcome of it, we can go ahead and modify that and make a change, see what worked and what did not work, so we can make it better on next time around. Because as teachers, there's things sometimes we have to change and modify, and it's not wrong to do that, because that's what teachers do. They adapt so we can leave and get to the learning outcome, or the student learning outcome, as we call them at the college level. They involve all students in self-assessment, goal settings, and monitoring progress. Teachers use available technology to assist, that's the key word, to assist in assessment, analysis, and communication of student learning. At the end of the day, it's whatever it takes us to lead to that student learning. So when they leave our class, they learn something, they can use it in their career path, because this is a CTE focus, so they can be college and career ready. All right. What is 5.1? 5.1 of the CSTP 5, it talks about applying knowledge of the purposes, characteristics, and use of different types of assessment. As teachers develop, they may ask, how do I? Or why do I? These common things that comes up to our minds, right? How and the why. Well, we have to become knowledgeable of the different type of assessment and their uses, benefits, and limitations that I draw on to inform my instruction. You got to select an assessment strategies and instrument appropriate to the learning outcome being evaluated. That's very, very important. You want to give something to the student to assess them based on the instrument and the technology. You have to use something that will assess and get you what you need so you can evaluate what the learning outcome is all about. You got to use the knowledge of assessment concepts such as validity, reliability, and bias to choose assessment appropriate to the students. That's very important when we do that, Because once you give them an assessment, you're going to receive data behind it, and that data will show what the results are. And based on that, it's going to tell you something where people are actually weak, where the majority of the class are doing good. So you can focus on that weak area. Maybe you can go ahead and go back to that lesson and fix it and talk about it, because we cannot just keep moving forward that you're doing your job. We have to stop, and we have to go back and fix something. That's why it's all about the learning outcome. When they leave the class, they achieve what they were supposed to achieve from the teacher perspective. Okay, let me give you more evidence on assessing students for learning. For example, the source of evidence, you got the classroom observation. Well, during the course of a lesson, which we all have, or series of lessons in that matter, the teacher incorporates entry level progress monitoring, which is checking for understanding. That's a very important thing. I do that with every single class that I teach. So when I'm teaching them something, I stop and say, okay, guys, do you have any questions? Okay, no questions. I don't stop there. I go and use the spinning wheel instead of use my stick that has their names on it. And then it spins. They like that sound. It's like a wheel of fortune. And then it comes up to that name, and I ask that person, Joe Smith or Mike or whatever that is. And I ask that question on the spot. So I'm actually equally selecting somebody based on what the technology is giving me. Then I can say, okay, they got it. Maybe I can do maybe 2-3 people, and I continue on. It's very important for us to understand that there's formative assessment and there's summative assessment. We all know what they are. Formative assessment, I know you guys know, but let me cover it for the sake of the presentation. Formative assessment, this one here, the way I do it as an example is, as I'm doing a lecture, think about it that you have your kids in the car. They're not behaving, or they're not understanding something. What do? Stop the car, turn around, and give them the rules again so they can understand what's going on. That's how I get formative assessment in my mind. So whatever I'm doing, I'm teaching something. If they're not understanding it, I stop my vehicle, my lesson, and then I go back and say, okay, what do we not understand? That's, to me, you're going back to make sure that they're going to meet the learning outcome. Summative assessment, it's basically what you give them using a Google form type of assessment, anything that deals with technology to attract and extract data from it by taking a test, by taking a quiz. That's called summative assessment. So that's what these two are. Lesson plan results from entry-level assessment for the new chapter. For example, I put math are used to group students for instruction. And then grade level benchmark assessment, basically results from the district writing assessment, are analyzed to identify adjustment to instruction that may be needed. In our case, we work for CRY-ROP, but yet we all work at a different site because we're an RFP organization. So therefore, whatever our district is aligning with our CRY-ROP, at the end of the day, whatever we're trying to do to get those students to be college and career ready. Any questions on that so far? Okay, perfect. Let's talk about 5.2. What is 5.2? This is more in depth now. Collecting and analyzing assessment data from a variety of sources to inform instructions. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm just going to talk about it for a couple of minutes. For example, like I said earlier, collecting and analyzing assessment using a Google form, whether you use Kahoot, whether you use a spreadsheet, whatever you use to be able to collect information when you assess your students, that tells you something. Data is something that we all need to understand because data tells you a story. When we do data analysis, and I have done data analysis in my previous professions, and I use it all the time, it tells me something. Okay, what am I focused on? Where's the weak area based on what I asked certain questions? Maybe 50% of the class did not get it, or 80% of the class they did get it. Well, I focus on that. I can go back and I do what I did earlier, formative assessment, in my lecture next time around, so I can say, you know what, we need to go over that again. Most importantly is in this 5.2, we have to keep the IEP goals in mind. You know, we all have students that they have some challenges, right? So we have to keep that in mind, that whenever we incorporate any type of assessment that meets every single individual need, equal opportunity for everybody. That's very important for us to understand because it assesses students' behavior to support learning. And I always keep that in mind when I'm doing any type of assessment. What is my IEP students' needs are? Do I have to give them maybe 1.5 times more than the regular student? Because remember, I have these in our system, in our SIS system, whether you use Aries or Zangle or Q, it tells you what their IEP or 504 is calling for. As teachers, we're actually obligated to make sure that we follow that for the students to meet their learning goals. So we have to keep that in mind so we can change it as we go based on the assessment of that individual student, especially for the EL students as well. Okay, let's talk about how possible evidence for that one. For example, on this one here, students show evidence of understanding the learning goals before, during, and after the lesson. Again, do the lesson, ask for questions, continue with the lesson, recap it, and then go back to it. Do you have any questions? And then maybe do an activity, play a game, maybe do a Mentimeter. I use Mentimeter all the time. You're familiar with it. You come up with a question and then they answer questions on the spot. It's fun. It gets people excited because it has colorful to it, and then it gives you data behind it. Anything you can track data from, source of information, it's going to help you as a teacher to assess what is really going on. It's all about assessing students for learning. Student work analysis, teacher reflects on the success of each lesson, and success is determined by the level of student understanding. That's what we do as teachers. We go back and say, okay, it's like a self-reflection. What did I do? What did I not do? Right? And I go back and say, you know what, I might need to tweak this and that. And I put some possible sources for us here. For example, anecdotal, maybe records of notes, essay, teacher-made test, teacher journal. These are all different sources for us to assess and to get data from our students so we can figure out what is really going on so we can help them meet the learning goals and learning outcome. Okay. And the last one that I'm covering today is 5.3. What is 5.3? Well, reviewing data both individually and with colleagues to monitor student learning. As teachers, same thing. They may ask, how do I, or why do I, the how and the why, right? Well, we have to review student assessment data with colleagues. That's why every district, every ROP, wherever you go, all the public schools, they have an assessment accountability department. They go through all these things to make sure, are we meeting the standard that is set by the state of California? Are we meeting a student learning outcome? More specifically for us as a college and career ready ROP, we're career CTE focused. Are we meeting those pathways? So if they're in that pathway for 2 years, are they getting the C grade and above so they can get credit as they get to the college? All these things we have to. So how do we know that? It's all about data driven. Data tells you a story, you fix it, you adjust it, and you move forward so you can fix it in your lesson so everybody can get to the final goals, which is student can be college and career ready. Source of evidence on that one, for example, data analysis documents. Teacher individually review California English Language Development Test, the acronym known as CELDT, and other local assessment results, uses the information to plan appropriate instruction and academic activities for English learners. Because we all have, in every single classes, we all have EL, right? And we have to keep those in consideration. We can't just talk and say, you know what, we think that everybody understands us. Yeah, they all speak the language, I get that, but sometimes they're deficient in that language. Therefore, our job is we have to keep that all in mind. The EL students, the IFPs, and the 504s. Because when we assess someone, that reflects on what's really going on. And that's why data tells you a whole bunch of information as a teacher, how to become, to attract and to get those students where they need to be. Student work analysis, teacher evaluate and analyzes a class set of student work to determine next steps for instruction. What does that mean? Well, as you do in your lessons, you gave the assessment, you can say, you know what, there's something that I need to cover with you guys. I'm going to go over it next week. You don't have to do it right away the next day. Give them a break, talk about a different topic, and go back to it, introduce it again the following week. Why do we do that? Because it gives them a break. Therefore, maybe they can get a fresh start, but we have to determine to go back and give them that lesson again. Maybe tweak your lesson again. Maybe change something around. And that has a lot to do with how we deliver our content, because sometimes it's the way it comes. Doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. No, we all do a good thing and good job as teachers, because obviously in this profession, we all have a calling for, we have a gift. We enjoy teaching, right? So if we have to tweak something and change something for something different, it's not wrong. We adapt. Teachers adapt all the time. Not long ago, I had a problem with one of my classes, and right away, plan A wasn't working in my lesson. Right away, I went to plan B, so I can utilize that time and go effective. And then that's what I did. And then I went back to A the next day. So we have to be able to adapt and get to the next level. And then, of course, get the students to make sure that they're getting their learning outcome. And lastly here, grade level team meeting minutes. Teacher participates in ongoing monitoring of the English learners, content progress, and language skills within the structure of grade level teams. Plans are made about impact on planning and instruction. And that usually happens when we have meetings with our grade level team, or we have meetings at the district level. There's a lot of things that we can learn from, so we can always stay on the same page, so we can deliver and help our students to always get to the main goal, which is to be college and career ready. So any questions? No questions? Very
Well
good.
stated. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I hand you the torch.
Mike, that's a tough act to follow, man.
No. Go ahead.
Nice job. Nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Here we digress. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Do you see it? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
We see Quad D training.
Okay, that shouldn't be there.
Here we go, Larry.
We see the CSTP. Perfect.
That's the one. Yep.
Okay, you see that all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, 5.4, using assessment data to establish learning goals and to plan, differentiate, and modify instruction. The bullets are review and revise learning goals with students over time, ensure that student learning goals reflect key subject matter, concepts, skills, and applications, use informal assessments to adjust instruction while teaching, use multiple sources of assessments to measure student progress and revise instructional plans, work to differentiate goals and plans based on assessed needs of my diverse learners and English learners. So I'm going to show some examples of different types of assessments that I've used in my class. So just I'm just going to show a few of them, and then I'm going to go into a little more detail. But some of the assessments that I think we all use are quizzes from Google. That would be a formal assessment. An informal assessment, I've had a number of guest speakers, and I always require that the class send them a thank you note for presenting to the class. And part of that is that they have to give at least one thing that they found interesting or that they liked about the presentation. So that's an informal example. Other assessments, we've done student presentations. We've had a number of, well, not a number, we've had a few hands-on activities and some home projects. We also did a research page or paper on the Jeff Bezos Earth Fund, and I had each student assigned to a different entity that Bezos was giving his grants to, and there was, you know, to give the basic information of what they found about. And this was just an example of the World Wildlife Fund. Another example is, you know, for the visual learner here, you know, we built a guitar in class. So when we first started out, and I assume this would be quadrant quadrant A. So I gave them a quiz on all the different parts of the guitar. So for the visual learners, I think this helps them. And then this is just an example of, like Mike was saying, the data tells us a lot. So this is just an example of a recent quiz that I gave on the water cycle. And you can see on this one question, 60% of the class or the students taking this quiz got the answer correct, but 40% didn't. And you also see that the answers were all over the place, the incorrect answers. So that told me that I needed to go back and regroup and re-emphasize the lesson and to better understand where I went wrong, or if it was the misunderstanding. So I went back and retaught it to make that correction. And let's see, 5.5, involving all students in self-assessment, goal setting, and monitoring progress. Make assessment an interactive process between teacher and student. Model self-assessment strategies for all students. Develop and use tools and guidelines that help all students assess their work and monitor their learning goals. Provide opportunities for all students to engage in peer discussion and reflection of their work. Provide opportunities for all students to demonstrate and reflect on their learning inside and outside of the classroom. So I'm going to show a few examples of that as well. And don't know that you can see this that well, but before we did our hands-on projects, I developed this skill matrix, and I had there were 14 different elements, 14 different skills, and I had each student grade themselves on each skill. And then we reviewed it as a class to see, what categories were we lacking? For instance, it's hard to read, but after taking filling out the skills matrix, we found out that nobody in the class knew how to solder. So that was a skill that before, of course, I would have them do that. We would have to have some training. And then I had other categories where, everybody knew how to do a PowerPoint. So for the assignment, it helped me to assign different aspects of the home project to different students, and the ones that needed more support, I provided more support. So let me just share with you a couple of examples, and that might better illustrate some of those points. So here, so here is a home project that we did, and I gotta take it to the, okay, so this was a home project that we did, and the kids were assigned to, first of all, we got through quadrant A and B of, we went through in detail and learned about how to do a project scope, the elements of project management. And then the students gave the background. They did the scope of the project, how they were going to execute the project, the deliverables at the end of the project, and then a conclusion. So they had to come up with a material list. And then as far as self-assessment and self-goals, they had to develop their own schedule, write things out, and develop a project schedule with detailed tasks. They had to commit to who was going to do the different tasks, commit to a date, and then they also had time elements for each segment. So here's just some pictures of them actually working on the project. And there's the finished project right there. The other thing we talked about was to talk, before we started the project, they had to understand any constraints, particularly since we were going through distance learning and they were going to be working on their own. So we had them identify any constraints, potential constraints, and then apply some countermeasures to those constraints. So on this one, as their conclusion, you see the other thing that they did was they got as much of the material, they recycled the wood. So they went to the local supermarket and just got used pallets. And they prepped the pallets. They used all the different hand tools. And then they just said, you know, that the costs were much higher than expected and they should have predicted some much better spending. Anyway, so that's just an example of one project. I'll show you one more that was a little bit more detailed. And this was using recycled wood to make a ceiling lamp. So again, they developed their project scope. They did an overview, the scope, the same elements of the project plan. They developed a budget. They came up with a material list. They had to have some, part of the requirement were to have drawings or some type of instruction. They provided a video. We talked about detailed instructions, safety measures, and one of the things I liked, we had talked about this in class and they put this in their presentation, is being in the right state of mind before we start to work on anything. They provided contact information for all the team members. Talked about time management, organization, goal setting and communication, planning, delegation, and of course, stress management. And then they listed all their resources and they showed self-reflection. So things that they felt they could do a better job of next time is time management, communication, things that they needed to improve on, decision-making, attention to detail, self-confidence, public speaking, and improve upon cooperation. So those are just two examples of home projects that apply to the Standard 5. The last two items, using available technologies to assist in assessment, analysis, and communication of student learning. So the one thing that I wanted to show for that was just using ARIES. They have a number of reports, but also, you know, the different grade books that you can look at to monitor the students' progress, how they're doing on their assignments. And element 5.7, using assessment information to share timely and comprehensive feedback with students and their families. Again, I'm just showing the reports that are generated in ARIES, and a lot of this information is available to the parents. So for final grades and just report cards for the period. So those are the elements. Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to recap just the last 2 minutes if I can, Larry. Thank you so
Sure,
much. Well done,
sure.
sir. Thank you very much. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. It's the last piece of it here. Tell me if you see my screen. Give me a thumbs up, please. Good job. All right. So what I usually use is it's called the Bloom's taxonomy chart. Okay. Why do I use it? It's very important when you assess what's going on, especially for the CSTP5, because it's all about assessing and finding out ways to understand the data. So the first step is creating. You create the assessment, and that tells you, it gives you information. Okay. Next step is you want to evaluate. Evaluate what you did. The third step is analyze it. Okay. Next step here with the green is you have to apply that data that you got. What Larry was talking about earlier, and I did that initially, is go back and say, you know what, why did they get, like what he said, 60% on one of them and 40% on one? There's a gap. So we need to go ahead and fix that gap by reintroducing that lesson. Maybe not right away, maybe in a week, maybe in 4 days. Okay. Give the student that little break, because sometimes if they're not understanding it in a couple of days, something is going on. Go back to a different goal, introduce a different lesson, and then maybe come back to it. Part of that, maybe a quick lesson. And then that's how we can maybe apply it again so they can get that lesson that they did not get. And understanding, check for understanding. It's very important. You guys all do. You guys are all veteran teachers. It's important for us to stop and ask questions. Many students, they don't know how to ask questions. They say, I got it. Yeah, I got it. And then when you take them to breakout sessions, I know who they are. I know my students really well. I take them to breakout session because I know it, because they're shy. I get it. It's the age group. It's okay. And then they say, you know what? I know. I said, exactly. That's why I took it to your breakout session. Let's talk about your needs. What can I do to support you? And then they open up and I give them their tools. Here we go. And then they excel. They do a really good job. We have to check for understanding. And the last thing is remembering. What does that mean? Remembering that you have to find or remember information. Whatever worked, use it again. Whatever did not work, it's okay. Try something different. And my fellow colleagues, that is it for CSTP 5. I hope you liked it.
I put some activities into this presentation. I like to show things more than I like to talk about them. And I think it's just more effective. In fact, that's part of the standard itself, is differentiating, adding variety, etc. Anyway, standard 5, it's really a whole lot of legalese and technical terms if we were to read it out. The teachers apply knowledge to the purposes, characteristics, and uses of different types of assessments, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, I actually went in opposite order with this. I meant to even call it the countdown. So this is your standard 5 countdown. We'll start at the top with standard 7. Using assessment information to share timely, that's the key word there, timely and comprehensible feedback with students and their families. So provide students with information about their progress as they engage in learning activities in a timely manner. Communicate assessment results to families in a way that's respectful, etc. So basically what that comes down to is just the normal stuff you use every day. If you're using Aries, if you're using Google Classroom, basically as long as you're grading in a timely manner, you're communicating with students, you're sending grades home, then basically you're meeting 5.7. It's really as simple as that. I have some more specific examples there. We have like Google Classroom, Aries, but basically if you're using letter grades, rubrics, report cards, which, if you're not doing your report cards, then I'm pretty sure you wouldn't still be here. Test scores, conferences, parent-teacher conferences, etc. IEP meetings, all of that. I mean, if basically as long as you're showing up to work, you're at least meeting 5.7. 5.7 in action, I guess this would also extend to phone calls home. To be honest, I need to call some families. Specifically, 5.7 is about the assessment data. So if you have students that maybe struggle with a login, have some new platforms this year that you need logins and the passwords can be sensitive and students forget their passwords and sometimes have to call home. And this is what the experience could be like sometimes. Chances are you've seen this video. But you know, this stuff gets recycled through tips so much. So, by the way, can you guys hear this? Chris has me, you know,
far
self-conscious. Did you at least hear that beep?
Yes.
So far, so good. Oh, okay, cool. All right, let's go.
Number that has been disconnected. The number that has been disconnected. You have reached a number that has been disconnected. Reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
Call you back because you watching a basketball game. Well, your son is shooting air balls on every assignment in my class. And it ain't the coach's fault. And one more outburst, you're gonna be traveling to the office. So he's in the kids' choir in church. Well, in my class, he's a disciple of distraction. Is this the parent or guardian of Samantha Cummings? No, I didn't say nothing about a panther running. Please turn something down in the background. You gonna call me back on commercial where your child's conduct is turning into a commercial-free series. Look at God. I'm just thanking God that you finally answered the phone. I woke you up? Well, I'm glad. Sorry, wrong number. I must have the wrong number. I'm sorry. My bad. Wrong number. I'm sorry. I know I got the wrong number, but do you know Jamarcus, aka Jawildy Not? Well, I'm just not calling you. Was your number 281-777-9311? My thumbs are red from dialing your number so many times. Well, what did I say to her to make her mad? Do your work. Is that your daughter saying I'm lying in the background? Put me on speaker. They're gonna get me fired on the day I took off.
So actually, upon watching that again, I'm sure I've seen it, but it's so good and it's applicable. Obviously, not just to this standard, but anytime you're calling parents, I mean, I'm sure everyone has, let me exit full screen. I'm sure everybody has their own stories when it comes to calling home, different experiences, etc. But you really have to be sensitive as to what you're getting yourself into, or what you're getting your student into. You really have to know your students. I know it's more difficult in distance learning, but I've had more than one occasion in my first year of in-person teaching where I've called home, and it's made some problems for those students. Not every student has the same type of home life. You know, your typical parents, sometimes they're living at the pleasure of extended family, and even a positive call home would be, you know, reason to get your student in trouble. So that detail is actually part of the standard. Just keep those, you know, those little details in mind, because every family is so much different, just like the video showed. Anyway, moving down the countdown to 5.6, using available technologies to assist in assessment, analysis, and communication of student learning. You may not have noticed, but the title of the slideshow is actually the standard of distance learning, and that's because this standard is all about using every bit of technology you have in every one of your lessons. So really, there's a good chance if you're not fulfilling standard 5, you're probably not a teacher right now. You're probably not teaching at all if you're not doing these things. So really, everything I'm telling you should likely be a day-to-day process for you. Become familiar with select technology resources, familiar with Aries, familiar with Google Classroom. Use technology to analyze student learning and inform instruction. So if you were to ask me, let's say what my do now assignment would be for Monday, there might be a chance that I don't know. And the reason for that is often my, you know, especially my like little check for understanding assignments, my little like tidbits here. I could show that myself, I guess. So here's an example. Today was a startup question, and the question itself was what caused the exhaust smoke in like this select video. It's like a 1-minute video. And then they select the answer. But the reason I chose this for this particular do now assignment for today is because students were struggling with the idea that smoke could be caused by fuel. So based on the assignments that we've been going through this week, I had to adjust my curriculum. You could even say I adjust my lessons. And that's basically to meet students where they are. You know, we can say things as articulately as we would like. We could teach them in a way that we would like to be taught, but students might not absorb it. So we have to continuously adjust our lessons. Moving on, 5.6. 5.6 is specifically a variety of technology. So there's a chance you could just be using just G Suite. That would probably be pretty difficult. But to meet 5.6, you really got to shake it up a little bit. You know, Kahoot, different platforms, Nearpod. I use Nearpod a lot. Particularly what I would use Nearpod for the most is the video assignments. So I upload a video, put some sort of check for understanding in there, true or false. You know what really happens a lot with Zoom? You may have noticed this with this video, is I will share my screen and the video will become choppy. Well, if you download the video and put it in a different format, throw it in a Nearpod, whatever have you, it'll really like cut down on all that like choppiness, the voice being off, you know, especially if you're getting to like a joke or something in a video and the voice comes after the mouth moves, it really kills the whole video. So anyway, I didn't want to just tell you that you have to use a variety of technology. I figure I'd show it. We have, I don't know, something like 20 minutes I have to fill. So I'll try to kill a little bit of time in here. I have this really quick Kahoot. So if you're using Kahoot, if you're using one of those varieties of technology, if you're not just doing Google Forms every day, then you're technically fulfilling 5.6. I'll use Kahoot obviously to make it fun, to make it interactive. I haven't gotten to 5.5 yet, but 5.5 is about making assignments interactive. So Kahoot kind of fills almost every mark of 5.7. We have variety, technology variety. We can analyze the results at the end. It's interactive, so students aren't just listening. It's not a lecture. It's not a video. It's it begs that the students actually get up and do something. And if you think about it, compare a presentation where you're asked to listen against a presentation where you listen and where you're asked to do something. So if you're asked to do something, if you're asking your students to, even if it's something simple like put the pin into the Kahoot, whatever it is, looks like we got Bill in here. Put the pin into the Kahoot, access the game, answer the questions, whatever, versus just listening to me telling you all the answers. Anyway, I'm gonna hit start. I hope no one's like about to jump in. If so, I'll do what I do for my students. I'll put the game pin in the chat because I always have one student who adds after like the third question. I really don't know why. Every class, no fail, there's at least one or two students who add like halfway through the Kahoot. Maybe they're getting a bowl of cereal. I really don't know at this point.
Are we supposed to do this? Oh my God.
This one, I don't know. Nothing's made me feel older while teaching than this question just by itself. I mean, I don't know if you've all seen 007. I would assume so. You're likely older than me, but not one student knew that Goldfinger was a 007 movie. I don't think I had one student get that right. So.
Oh my God.
Good job, Megan. Jeez. Every student got the Transformers one right too. So maybe you all aren't that different than the students. I don't know. This really does seem to move much faster for students. not a cat. Okay. Not a cat's in the lead. You know, the CEO of Porsche actually called Disney and lobbied to them tirelessly to make Sally Carrera the latest model Porsche for marketing purposes. And obviously it worked. They really wanted to make Sally a classic Porsche. Sometimes I wish they really had, especially with her whole like love for this weird small town in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, this is basically done right here. The Ford versus Ferrari has actually been out for a year and a half now. Not necessarily new, but at least it's the newest one in this
good movie
series. Pretty good.
Is that like the very last movie that came out in the theater?
Yeah, one
I
of
feel
the
like
last,
it,
right?
yeah.
Cheryl Kelby was a pretty cool guy.
All right, well, thank y'all for humoring me for the Kahoot. I'll let the first place get Megan.
Let's go.
Megan, you know, congratulations, Megan. To be honest, my money was on Ryan. That's only because I saw his movie memorabilia. So yeah, I'm not. You could be the biggest movie dork, actually, Megan. So
I'm already the biggest dork.
Anyway,
Thank
I
you.
only have just regular dork. Well, congratulations. Anyway, 5.6, that's variety. Just this real quick, this is how I often feel in Autoshop, because the students, I mean, even the students still ask me, how can you do Autoshop online? Like, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I feel like Obi-Wan in this meme right here. I've actually made a bring your ratchet to school day and went over decent. Students brought their tools to school. But I'm still like Ben Kenobi on that laptop right there. Just, you know, we'll click on the module and turn it in, click on this next. Anyway, since, you know, I did this as a group, I'm gonna be honest, I focused on 5.6 and 5.7 mostly. 5.5, make assessments interactive. Allow for assignment choice or even alternative assignments. I give students full credit for all sorts of assignments, especially in the actual classroom, okay? If it was something that, you know, demonstrated competencies in automotive and it wasn't, you know, my conventional test or something, as long as they did it, and as long as they learned and they met the competency, then they got full credit for whatever the test was. So keep that in mind. You know, not every student is going to think the way you think or learn the way you learn, which is the whole point of having a variety of technologies. Anyway, I'll skip a little bit past this stuff. But this is what I mean by variety, you know, have a little bit of everything, pepper it in. If you do too much of one thing, you actually basically over season the steak at that point. You over salt it. I'll tell you a story from just last week. I had an observation with Hisham, and I wanted my observation in my file to say, you know, Jeff uses this technology and that technology, and he's on the ball in this way. You know, we could wrap it up, have a nice evaluation, and it was nice, don't get me wrong, but I packed the assignment so full of having a Nearpod and like a question at the beginning and then doing an interactive module that by the time we got to the end of the assessment, and it was, you know, it's good, don't get me wrong, I hadn't shared any of my personal experience. So don't forget, like, you're the main course of the lesson. Like, the students are there to listen to you because you're a subject matter expert. You're an expert in whatever your field is. So too much variety is actually, I mean, I think we could all agree that's a bad thing if there are just way too many activities. Kind of like this presentation itself, you know, there's a video, there's like a Kahoot. After this, we got an interactive Jeopardy after this. Has anyone ever played Factile? You guys ready for Factile? This is another phenomenon, at least that I've witnessed myself. Students just get overwhelmed. I had a few heavy lifts this semester because I had new technology that was approved for and paid for by CRY-ROP. It's called Electude. It's basically like a simulation software. Students can simulate replacing spark plugs, working under the hood, changing tires, reading a tire sidewall, etc. But I rolled that login out the same time I rolled out another login Like I rolled them out almost concurrently in the same month. And it really was overwhelming for my students and their families because, yeah, I mean, I had that large group of students that had no problem. They're doing their work. But I have a small segment of students that, you know, they confused one login with another. They don't know which login is for which assignment. And that isn't a huge group of students. But it is hard to sort those things out. If you are going to try a new technology, which everyone should, even this late in the year, if you find something new, implement it. But pepper it in, you know, pepper it in. One new thing a month, maybe one new thing every couple of weeks. Try to make a routine without, like I said, over seasoning the steak. Anyway, I kind of jumped ahead to make that point. Informal assessments. Okay. Sometimes I myself have been guilty of undershooting my own informal assessments. Since it's informal, I'll just call on like whichever student I see first. But that's not sustainable. That can't really last long term, especially if I'm going to pick on, like right now, I could probably pick on Scott. I'm pretty sure Scott would say something and it would be great. But in your normal classroom, you have your Scott, someone, you know, Scott will always answer, and Deborah, I know because you definitely will answer. I'll pick on you, Deborah. Let's just say never answers. So I'll avoid Deborah because I don't want the rejection of Deborah snubbing me and not answering me. Well, even if Deborah's going to snub me every time, I have to give Deborah that chance, you know. I have to make sure I call on Deborah just as much as I do Scott, because one day Deborah might respond. And I've learned actually in my own experience the hard way that that's actually happened. Sometimes I have students pegged and then I continuously give them a chance. And then one day they respond. So this is a technology that I've used. What were we on right here? 5.5. 5.5 is about using strategies to make sure you're getting to every student, using technology to strategize to make sure every student is getting treated the same way, or every student has opportunity to respond or participate or access the class. I'm sure everyone's heard of this but me. I just started using the wheel of names like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. I'd actually brought back the sticks before I started using these. I think I have them on hand somewhere here. I made like 100 sticks before I started using this wheel of names. I really wish someone had told me about this. It very may well be in the CRY-ROP folder, binder of all the resources. But what I like most about it is you open it up and you sign in. So you sign in through Google. I sign in just through my school Google. I have all of my classes saved. I didn't even mean to hit save. I meant to hit open. So I'll just give that a second. I'll hit open. So I have each of my classes, and then I made one for tip just to show you an example. So the way you could use this for informal instruction to reach every single student is by basically just saving at the end of each class. So I'll start by spinning. Sorry, I won't actually ask you a question. So if you felt like all that anticipation, Rodney. Nice to see you, Rodney. And then remove his name. And then you can remove every name you call on and save it. And then if you're using informal instruction like a normal person does, like maybe 2 or 3 students a period, obviously you can't call on everyone in one period. Then when you come back tomorrow, and when you come back the next day, you can ensure that we still get to Deborah and Christian and Jesse, and I don't call on Rodney again every single day.
Or if they're not paying attention, you put their name on 3 times.
Yeah, there's that. Or like, let's say Rodney was a student and he didn't answer, then I'll just leave his name on there. But that method has really dug out some students I just thought would never respond. I started implementing that, and even though it's awkward the first few times, usually you spin it and you get Rodney and you get Rodney again, and then maybe like the 3rd time or the 4th time in a different week, Rodney would be like, I'm giving in. So the wheel of names is how I implement 5.5. And I think that was really like my last actual piece of advice. Forgive me on the slideshow, just since you know, three gentlemen put this together. So it is a little, is a little different. Some
Doing great.
spots are a little different than others, but you can totally see it. And I think that's really all I got. I'll just finish with just key examples. Apply. So make sure you're analyzing your assessment data and that you're revising your lessons. You're revisiting whatever it is, exhaust manifolds. If students don't understand it, come back to it. Integrate, use variety, okay? Just like I pictured here, this dude, sprinkle that stuff in, all right? Change it up. Students don't like Google Slides all the time. They don't like just Kahoot endlessly. I don't care what students say, but if they wanted to eat Oreos for the rest of their life, they'd eventually get sick of that too. So make sure you're changing it up. Third, explore, try new things. If you haven't used Tactile yet, try that. If you haven't used Kahoot, I'm pretty sure everyone's used Kahoot, but try that. And lastly, communicate. If you have that one student who just will never log into a certain platform, if you have that one student that gets an F on literally every test, and it's about time to talk to his or her parents to see what they could do to help support that student. I don't know. Just make sure whatever the problem is, you're communicating it. And that goes for, you know, Aries, Google Classroom too. Those are your kind of foundations of this standard, standard 5.1, 5.7, record keeping, as it were. Any questions on any of that?
All right. So our next tip session will be April 22nd. We skipped the month of March. Congratulations for your break time there. So from 3 to 5 again. And then we have a couple split up groups here. We have Chris as teacher. So Chris Barta is another mentor teacher who's taking Dan and presenting CSTP 6. And Scott, again, another group here, is taking Jesse with CSTP 6, sorry. And then myself will be my group with the CSTP 6 as well. So exit ticket here, put in the chat, what professional development would you like to receive? We're starting to now, you guys have received emails from us mentors and communicating with you guys on, what are you seeking in your classroom? What are you, wanting guidance on? That were some emails sent out for you guys to answer those questions. So kind of same thing here in the chat. What professional development would you like to receive? That's professional development, but we're talking about, what do you want to work on, at least the email wise, in your classroom if you haven't answered those yet. So what are you looking for PD wise that we can maybe bring to the table? Tech tools to help with IEP and ELL accommodations, modifications, absolutely. Okay. Those tech sessions too, there might be one specifically we can create around that and acknowledge that and say, hey, the date of, May or so is to be a great one to attend. So thank you, Alexis.
I think that's 3 right there. Tech tools, yep. IEP, ELL accommodations and modifications, and tech tools to help with IEP.
All of that. That's already. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Becoming more effective at assessments. Absolutely. And learning process. It really is, guys. It takes a few years to kind of get your toes wet and get through this. So, well, in class, I'm not singling them out. Yes. Modifying assessments and lessons for students. Stop singling them out. That's hard. I don't know about you guys with like black screens. I do try to call them their names and be polite and give them a minute to type in their answer if they're not going to verbally say it. But just to test that they're there, right? And communication, they're paying attention. What was that again? For the 4th time, let me repeat it. I know we've been there. Tech tools for IEP, ELL, and also creating more virtual classes. Yeah. Awesome. Articulation, meeting with college instructors to review curriculum. I like that. That's actually a great suggestion.
James and I are your guy there.
I like that. All right.
Yeah. And then I just posted in the chat all those things we had on the teacher check-in slide, the PD collaboration, Tech Tuesdays, credential form, tip talk, the Google activity tracker.
Very good. All right. I think this is our question time, our lovely emojis there. Maybe you've done that with your students or not. Had some type of icebreaker, something fun, share an emoji, make a Google slide like this and have them play with it for every 10 minutes of a period just to have a little bit of break time. That'd be kind of fun. They're tech savvy. But anything else we can answer for you guys at this time? No? It's dinner time for everybody. We're ready to go. Yes, I know.
It's commute time.
It is time to, yes, get on the traffic. Ugh. Sounds good. I guess, yeah, well, we will see you back Thursday the 22nd, and look out for those emails about March 4th, the PD collaboration, and any updates we'll be having between Chris and myself and other mentees to send some things your way. David, any last minute comments?
Have a good day tomorrow. Have a good weekend.
Yes, enjoy your weekend, relax.
You guys can have a great evening. Sorry to take up a minute more of your time than we were supposed to.
Show them the next slide, Chris, before they go. The Bitmoji. It's so good.
Is it? Yeah.
There they are.
Any questions
about that?
Thanks. Great presentation.
Thanks
job,
for being tolerant of our teething issues, and you guys have a great night.
There you go, Deborah. Bye-bye, guys.
Got it. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.